and welcome to The Art of Decluttering. I'm your host, Amy Revell. I am a mum of 2 teenage boys who don't wear uniforms to school, but do have a sports uniform. So I'm going to be sharing with you today around school uniforms. I want to talk about when I was at school, when I'm working with clients, a few different options for school uniform acquisition, decluttering, and also storing. So I'm going to jump straight in because there's a few things to share today, and I don't want to keep you too long because I hope you're enjoying some holidays and some time off over January. When you're dealing with your school uniforms, it's really tricky when you feel like you should buy everything on the uniform list, but you know that your kids are just not going to wear everything. For instance, when I was in high school, when I started at my high school, the only option for girls in summer was a summer dress, and the only option for girls in winter was a pinafore or I'm going to call it a kilt because that's kind of what it was. It's a tartan pleated skirt. They were the only options that we had. But then in year 9, they brought in pants for girls, and I never wore a pinafore again. And so even though pinafore was on the school uniform list, there was no point my parents investing any of their money in a pinafore because I was just never going to wear one because I wore pants every single day. And so you may have a uniform list provided by the school, and your school may have particular items that they have to wear. A lot of schools, you have to wear a blazer or you have to wear a tie or you have to wear a shirt. And so there's going to be some essential items, but there's also going to be things that your kids prefer. So what you want to work out is, what do I need for each child? And so I would just write down on a piece of paper or put it as a note in your phone, what do I need to have for each child at the start of the year? And if your kids are anything like mine, they grow like weeds. And so maybe just plan the summer uniform. You don't have to buy the winter uniform, perhaps until May or June or whenever it swaps over. So just plan what you need because you don't want to buy it now and then it's too small, which inevitably will happen. The way that I've always done it is you start with that list. If it's a brand new school, you're starting with zero inventory. But if your kids are already at school, start with your eldest child, go into their bedroom, make sure that all the uniforms have been washed and dried and returned to the right rooms over the holidays. And then start with your eldest child and go through their list. What do we already have that's on the list that they can get another year's wear out of? And so some items will be too small, but you'll be surprised. They often do have some items that they can keep. So go through and then tick things off as you've got them. Sports uniform, tick. Socks, tick. Shoes, tick. Hat. It's a bit mucky, but I'll wash it and it'll be fine. Tick. And grab those things that you do need and make sure that they are put back in the wardrobe and that you've ticked them off. And then you have a list of what you need to buy for your eldest. I shouldn't say eldest. It actually should be child in the largest size. It's not always the eldest. And then if you've got multiple kids at the same school, you want to go to the next largest size child and take in all those clothes that didn't fit your biggest child and try them on your second biggest. And so then you kind of have this flow down waterfall effect of it didn't fit them, but it's going to fit them. And I tick the things off the list and what do I need to buy? And then take the excess down to the next kid and so on and so forth for whatever kid, whatever school, how it works for you. So what it means is that you start with a list. You really clearly know what is ticked off that list. And then you know that you need to acquire some items. Now, you can always buy things brand new, but there are some really good secondhand uniform like WhatsApp groups or Facebook pages that you can get connected with and actually just swap uniforms with people. Uniforms can be really expensive, particularly if you're at a private school or your kids are starting at a new school when you've got to buy the whole kit and caboodle. So using those secondhand uniform resources is a really good way to kind of keep those costs down at the start of the year because it can completely blow out. Now, I'm really lucky. My kids are at one of the few schools in Victoria, at least, that don't have a uniform, and I absolutely love it. But my kids don't have a lot of clothes. And so this is, even for if you've got kids like mine that go to a school that they don't have a uniform, we still need to have enough clothes that they're not going to run out of shorts on a Wednesday. And so one of the things you want to think about is, what's my laundry routine going to be like? So if you work full time, so nobody's doing washing midweek, you probably need to buy 5 uniforms. And if you wash every single night, you might be able to get away with 3 uniforms. And so how many uniforms you have is going to be dependent on how your family works, what the school requires, what the routine is, what you can afford. You may find, actually, I can only afford 3 uniforms, and so I'm going to be forced to do washing twice a week. So you want to be thinking about the full cycle of the process, the purchasing, knowing what you need. Let's do it the other way. Knowing what you need, purchasing, making sure that you've got some kind of a routine so that kids don't come to you on a Thursday morning and don't have a sports uniform. And I want to talk to you as well about how we're going to store them. So let's take a quick break, and I'm going to be back in just a second. One of the really important things that can be a sticking point for families with school uniforms is not knowing whose is whose, particularly if you've got kids in very close sizes in terms of clothing. So for a little period there, my boys were very similar size, and it was genuinely confusing because we'd look at uniforms and think, I don't know, and you'd kind of get to know their uniform by like, well, that kid has ones that are a little bit more faded than the other one, or actually everyone's all in the shorts and T-shirts, just pick one and off you go. You may choose to do some kind of color coding. You might just put some thread on the tag. You might just write the name somewhere, some way that kids can really easily, when the washing is done, go through and pick out their uniforms. Or even better, get to the habit where someone in the family sorts the washing and you guys get in the habit of putting washing away as soon as it comes off the line or out of the dryer. And the benefit of that is that you're never kind of rushing around on a school morning going, I don't have my hat, I don't have my sports uniform, because you know that the only place that the clothes could be is either waiting to be washed or that's away in the wardrobe. So let's talk about some ways that we can really give kids the best start to a school morning by having those clothes really well organized. You don't want to have to be helping kids get organized when they're in year 8 and helping them find a shirt for school in the morning. There's a few different ways, but the biggest tip I have for you is to keep your uniforms all together in the wardrobe, whether it's hanging or in drawers or in tubs, however you do clothes. Keep the uniform separate to the casual clothes, because that really will make it easy in the mornings when the kids just open and they don't have to find what they're looking for. They just have to pull it out. I have seen some families do a really cool thing where they get those hanging, how would I call it? They're kind of hanging cubes, and it's got a hook on the top that hooks over the rail in the wardrobe. And then it has 5 hanging cubes. And so what some families will do, and this is particularly great for primary school kids, is that you can put like Monday to Friday uniforms at the start of the week. You put in each slot what they need for that day. So if there's a particular day they need a sports uniform, then you just put sports uniform on the Wednesday every week. And so you can prepare that for them if they need it. This is great if you've got kids that have low executive functioning skills and really kind of struggle to make those decisions. You can have like your 5 days worth of clothes just easily hanging there. They work their way down. I always found it really helpful to just have them hanging, and I would do them like completely separated, like all on the left and then everything else pushed all the way to the right. And we found that worked. I would often put their after school activity shirts and stuff with the uniform, so like their basketball shirts or cricket shirts would sit on the uniform side. So there was the uniform side of the wardrobe and the casual side of the wardrobe. Whatever you do, you want to make it easy for your kids so that they can get ready in the morning, have clean uniforms. And also parents, that you don't have to get to the day before school goes back and realize that everything's too small because your children grew like weeds over summer. The same as last week, I just want to encourage you to share today's episode with a parent. Share it on a WhatsApp group, share it on your Facebook, your Instagram, text it, share it however you need to so that other parents can have these tips and tricks, because I really want to help you guys make life simpler. We want to declutter and organize and make everything about family life simpler. One quick tip actually that I forgot to tell you is one thing that I found really awesome when the kids were in primary school is I found a family that was just a little bit bigger than my kids, and a different family that was a little bit smaller than my kids. And so rather than every year having to source these secondhand uniforms, at the end of every year, I would go and talk to Michelle, who had kids older than mine, and go, hey, do you want me to buy some of your uniforms off you? She'd be like, brilliant. Now I don't even have to think about it. I'd get uniforms. And then I had a separate family and I go, Deb, I've got some uniforms. Do you want my boys' uniforms for your kids? And it can be just like a nice way to meet people in your school community that are a little bit older and a little bit younger than you. They've got kids in different year levels, different ages. And it may be the first time you do meet them through a Facebook group and do a buy, swap and sell. But then say to them, hey, I'm going to keep your number. Next year, let's chat again. That's the final tip. Go and have an amazing rest of your day. And I look forward to chatting to you in the next couple of days. Until then, enjoy the freedom. I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of the land this podcast is recorded on. I would also like to pay respects to their elders, both past and present, of the Kulin Nation, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love you to rate and review the show on your podcast app. That will help others to find the Art of Decluttering podcast as well. If you'd like any more information, you can visit theartofdecluttering.com.au. And I would love to see you in my Facebook group. Just search the Art of Decluttering community on Facebook and join today. I hope that you have an incredible rest of your day and enjoy the freedom.